Welcome to Dominant Mets Nation. I am very, very disappointed. I'm disappointed in Major League Baseball. I'm disappointed in the Marquez umpire. This guy's been an umpire for over 20 freaking years. And that was one of the most abysmal criminal calls I've ever seen in that fourth inning. Unfreaking real. Great job by the New York Mets getting back into this game. Mark Vientos, great job with the triple in the eighth inning. But folks, let's really talk about that fourth inning. And I'm going to tell you what really bothered me and what was extremely disturbing about that whole thing that transpired. All right. So if first of all, I also want to mention if you are a baseball purist and you like clean games, you like defense, and you like all these great plays, this wasn't your game because Nimmo making a boneheaded throw to third base, letting the runner advance in the second inning, which would put him in scoring position. That would lead to the Nationals' first run. That put us down 1-0. Then you have a bunch of misplays in the ninth inning when it mattered most. I know, Juan Soto, that play that ended up being a triple in the ninth inning, it wasn't the most easiest play. But I'll tell you, on a scale of 1 to 10 from a major leaguer, that's probably a 4 or a 5. You saw he had plenty of time when he got to the warning track to get under that ball. He didn't. It went off the tip of his glove, but he didn't put himself in a position to make that play. Then the final single that ends up getting through, that scores the winning run, Jeff McNeil showing zero range. All he's got to do is slide, knock that ball down. All right, so the Mets made a lot of bad defensive plays. Tyrone Taylor in the eighth inning made a gem to cut down the runner who was getting to second base. That was a good play. All right. That's out of the way. Now let's get to the freaking fourth inning. And I'm telling you, I was at first I'm like, okay, they're going to fix this. This was so egregious. They have to fix this. At this time in the game, it was 2-0. The Nationals and the Mets were mounting a rally. Brandon Nimmo singles, Mark Vientos singles. Now you have first and second, 0 outs, folks. 0 outs. Jesse Winker hits a sharp line drive, short hops the first baseman. First baseman catches it on a hop, throws it to second because he knew he didn't catch it on a fly. If he caught it on a fly, he would have been running to first base. Throws it to second. Mark Vientos, the runner, proceeds to run to second. He saw the play. He saw that it wasn't caught on a fly. But for some reason, everybody's standing still. Everybody starts throwing the ball to second base, first base, and then you hear a triple play called. And I'm like, what the hell? It was confusing at first, but when you saw the replay and you saw the reaction of the players on the field, it was damn evident what happened. All right, so maybe the crew chief guy, Marquez, missed it, right? He missed it. So I'm thinking, all right, they're going to huddle. They're going to huddle with the 3 other umpires and come to a decision and make the right call. But for some reason, there's no huddle. There's no discussion. None of the other umps correct the call. I mean, I just don't get it. And then instant replay. This is the one call instant replay doesn't cover. Makes no sense. This is 3 outs, folks. This was such a consequential play in the game. This potentially could have been bases loaded, no outs. But, let's just assume they get the out at first. It could have been second and third, 1 out. I mean, the Mets were going to be in a very advantageous position to score runs. Right then and there, a botch call doesn't give you 1 out, doesn't give you 2 outs, 3 outs. So that's why I'm like, all right, you're going to at least want to huddle and get it right. But no. I mean, I looked up Marquez's stats as an umpire out of the last couple of years, and he consistently ranks, based on the stats that I saw in terms of accuracy, in the bottom 4. Him, Angel Hernandez, and a couple other umps. There's many different stats, but in the ones I saw, he was consistently bottom 4. I mean, based on this call, I'm not surprised. And you know what? He's been an umpire for over 20 years. He's been an umpire for over 20 years. You would think that wisdom would help you get the call right. But no, I think it led to the guy having ego. The other umps on the field probably knew the guy has an ego and didn't want this guy to be embarrassed. That is not the way. That is not the way you should umpire a baseball game so that your friend, your buddy doesn't get embarrassed. It should be at the end of the day getting the call as correct as possible. Other than that, why are we having instant replay? Why do you have 4 umps? You might as well have 1 ump if you're going to umpire like that. But all right, that is besides the point. Very disappointing, very upsetting. But at the end of the day, the Mets still had to prove why they are the best team in baseball. So, at this point, I'm hoping everybody can settle down, focus, and, win this game. Use this as momentum to win the game. All right, so let's talk about, before we get to some very heroic actions, let's talk about Kodai Senga, because Kodai Senga, I gotta say, his forkball wasn't dancing around like you normally see, but he did end up going 6 innings, allowing 6 hits, 2 earned runs. There were a couple situations where, I mean, Kodai Senga really had to pitch out of trouble. He really had to pitch out of trouble. I mean, bottom 2 limited the damage, 1-0 after that mental error by Nimmo. Bottom 3 also, Senga gave up a single, then he gave up a triple. It was already 2-0, and Senga bared down. He got 3 really big outs. He got his first out. The hitter hit a dribbler right in front of the plate, and then, coincidentally, the broadcast is saying how Senga's not getting strikeouts. But it seems like Senga was inducing a lot of ground balls. And in the bottom of the 3rd inning, when he needed to get the strikeout, he got Nathaniel Lowe to strike out, and he got Keibert Ruiz to strike out. So very good job pitching out of a potential, big situation, limiting the damage at just 2 runs. All right. We spoke about the 4th inning disaster. And before we advance on this game, this was also the first game by Jeff McNeil, and this was also the first game by Francisco Alvarez. I spoke about in my video last night how Brett Beatty was optioned down, and also Hayden Singer. He was also another casualty as well. But, I know a lot of people are upset. A lot of people are upset because, coincidentally, Brett Beatty was having his best 10-game stretch in quite some time. I mean, he had close to a 900 OPS. He was hitting the ball well, had that very clutch 2-run homer against Zach Wheeler, no less. So it looked like he was getting into a bit of a rhythm. And, it really stunk that, hey, you're getting a hot hitter and now you're sending him down. And, Jeff McNeil, he's coming back from injury. It kind of looked like maybe you were losing something. Well, you're hoping Jeff McNeil makes you feel a little bit better. I mean, in the last couple of years, I would say year and a half, I haven't been the biggest fan of Jeff. I'll put it that way. This game, he had that single late in the game, but Jeff's really got to start hitting the ball on a line. I mean, Jeff in the pop-ups, he hit home runs in 2019, but other than that, the guy's just a dink and dunk average hitter. So if he's putting the ball in the air, swinging at first pitches, not having productive outs, I mean, that is quite frustrating. And then unfortunately, he had that play at the end of the game where he showed 0 range and he ended up tipping the ball, and it allowed the Nationals to score the winning run. So Jeff didn't have a great opening game. Francisco Alvarez, he's a little bit of a different situation. His swing, you could see he was anxious, really out of the box. His total numbers today, he had 1 hit. He went 1 for 4. He had 1 strikeout. Same thing with McNeil. But Alvarez, he has the ability to affect the game on the defensive side. Alvarez has a good arm. Alvarez is good at framing pitches. Alvarez is good at calling games. Alvarez has that positive effect. He can affect the positive outcome on the defensive side. McNeil right now, and this is the good thing I'm telling people, if McNeil is not having a positive impact on the Mets winning, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter that the Mets are paying him, four-year contract, $50 million. It doesn't matter. Expect to see changes and expect to see changes quickly. All right. So, if anybody's upset by that, again, trust David Stearns, trust Carlos Mendoza. We have good leaders to get the Mets on a good winning track again. All right. Okay, so Senga did pretty decent. He limited damage in certain situations where the Nationals, and give them credit, they put a lot of pressure with their legs. But Senga, again, he continued to make pitches. The bottom of the fourth inning was 1-2-3. The bottom of the fifth inning was 1-2-3. The bottom of the sixth inning, the Nationals got a couple of guys on base. But, Senga was able to work through that. He was able to work through that. So I got to give him credit for that as well. In the sixth inning, you could see, I wrote down on my scorecard, I believe he threw close to 30 pitches in the sixth inning. Carlos Mendoza really wanted to get 6 from Kodai Senga. Very important. Kodai Senga didn't have his A-plus stuff, but he still was able to get through 6, getting James Wood to strike out, Nathaniel Lowe a ground out, Keibert Ruiz walked, Luis Garcia walked, and then he got Josh Bell to strike out, and that would end his night. 6 innings, 2 earned runs, and you got to remember, we are stretching Kodai Senga out. He didn't pitch all of last year. So Kodai Senga has got a 1.26 ERA on the year. Give him a lot of credit for this game. All right, so the Mets, off Jake Irving, the opposing pitcher, for some reason, even though he's got a career ERA of over 4, the Mets really struggle against this guy. They certainly do. So they didn't score anything for the first 7 innings of the game. Then, the 7th inning, Brazoban comes in, and Brazoban, the 7th inning, Brazoban really had to do some work. He really had to do some work to limit the damage. He really did. I got to say, it could have really got away in that bottom of the 7. In the bottom of the 7, Dylan Cruz comes up. He singles. Jose Tena comes up. He singles. Jacob Young, he has a sacrifice bunt. And, that gets Dylan Cruz to third and Jose Tena to second. So that does a good job advancing the runners. So you have second and third, 1 out. Abrams comes up to the plate, singles on a ground ball to the second baseman, Jeff McNeil. Dylan Cruz scores, Jose Tena to third. So you have a situation that you're running into where now you are down 3 runs and you're down 3 runs and you need outs. So James Woods comes up to the plate, and this was a huge, monumental at bat. Luckily, at this time, Brazoban was in the game. Brazoban gets James Wood swinging, strikes him out. Great job. You're still in trouble. Next guy up, Nathaniel Lowe, lines out to the pitcher, and you get out of a very, very dicey situation. Now, the game is still 3-0 Nationals, and if you're a Mets fan right now, this is what you're thinking. We lost, and it's because of the umps, right? We lost because of the umps. You're not feeling good. You are not feeling good at all. I know I wasn't feeling good. But the Mets, they have, I got to say, it's very hard to describe, but it looks like in this Mets DNA, they're always looking for a way, and they're trying to, they made a lot of championship plays. I'll tell you that. The Tyrone Taylor was a championship play, but this 8th inning was extremely a sight to see. So it starts off Jeff McNeil. He singles on a line drive to the right fielder, Dylan Cruz. And that's what Jeff's got to do. Nice line drive swing, going oppo. That is what Jeff McNeil needs to do. Tyrone Taylor comes up to the plate. He grounds out into a force out. Jeff McNeil is out at second, and Tyrone Taylor is now at first. So you have 1 man out, and you have Tyrone Taylor at first base. All right. Luckily, the Nationals go to the bullpen, and Jake Irvin is out. Jose Ferrara is in. Lindor is up. Mr. Captain Clutch is up. Unfortunately, Lindor pops up to the second baseman, and now things are looking a bit bleak, to be honest. You have 2 outs, man on first, but you got Juan Soto up. Juan Soto has a pretty good at bat, and he actually ends up lining a very sharp line drive to center field. He really squared it up. Very good swing by Juan Soto. So now you have 2 men on, 2 outs, and you have the polar bear coming up as the tying run. All right, things are getting pretty interesting. Pete Alonso comes up to the plate. It was a very, very good at bat. Very good at bat. Pete Alonso ends up walking, and that loads the bases. That loads the bases for none other than Brandon Nimmo. And Brandon Nimmo is looking for redemption after making the boneheaded mistake in the second inning. And again, Brandon Nimmo doesn't really make those mistakes. So, it's a rarity. So Brandon Nimmo comes up, bases loaded. He ends up singling on a ground ball to the second baseman, Garcia. Tyrone Taylor scores. Juan Soto goes to third. Pete Alonso goes to second, makes it 3-1. On this play, it was a little bit dicey, too, because Soto kind of got caught in the rundown, and they threw the ball to the catcher. The catcher misses it, so Soto was able to scamper back to third, or else it could have been a disaster at that point. All right, so nonetheless, Mark Vientos comes up with the bases loaded, and Mark Vientos comes up, and this he could have been the hero, but but still, at the end of the day, he hits a ball to the right field side. So it's going towards right field, and the outfielder, Dylan Cruz, is really coming in. He's running as hard as he can. He ends up diving, a full long dive. It bounces about 1.5 feet ahead of Dylan Cruz, and then bounces past Dylan Cruz and goes down the right field corner. At this time, I'm telling you, I'm going nuts. My wife's looking at me like, what are you doing? But I'm like, you don't understand how much this game means. All right, so the ball's trickling down the right field line. Juan Soto scores. Pete Alonso scores. Brandon Nimmo scores. The Mets take the lead 4-3. And I'm like, this is what championship teams do. They fight back no matter what. All right, so we still had another opportunity with Brandon Nimmo on third. This brings up Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker would then ground out to end the inning. All right, so we need to hold it for the bottom of the eighth and the bottom of the ninth. So Reed Garrett replaces Huascar Brazaban, and Keibert Ruiz would begin the inning. Very easily, Reed Garrett gets a ground out, so you got 1 out. Then you have Luis Garcia, and this was a monumental play. Luis Garcia singles on a line drive to center. Tyrone Taylor throws a bullet, a freaking bullet at the warning track in center field. As he's spinning around, throws it. One hops to Lindor. Lindor makes a nice tag, and he gets Luis Garcia trying to stretch a double, gets him out at second base to make a very key second out, as opposed to it being 1 out with a man scoring position. Now it's 2 outs, no men on base. And I'm thinking, Tyrone Taylor, very clutch play, big play, championship play, but Jose Siri is probably the only other guy on this Mets team that can make that play. We're talking about potentially putting Acuna out there. We're talking about putting McNeil out there. When Mendoza said maybe Nimmo might play a little bit of second center field. The only guy presently on this squad that I feel could have made that play was Tyrone Taylor. Nimmo doesn't have the arm. I don't think Nimmo doesn't have the arm. McNeil, I don't think has the accuracy. He might have the arm. I don't think he has got the accuracy. And Acuna, I got to see him play center field. But Tyrone Taylor, what a beautiful play. And that was so important to limit any damage. So Josh Bell comes up with no men on base, 2 outs, and Josh Bell strikes out. So a very impressive performance by Reed Garrett, but an even more impressive play by Tyrone Taylor. All right, folks, so we go into the 9th inning, and we got 1 inning left to a very magical victory. So the 9th inning starts off, and at this point, you have Kyle Finnegan in the game. Kyle Finnegan is the top reliever in the Nationals pen. Kyle Finnegan has been doing amazing as of late, and he makes pretty quick work of the Mets in the 9th. He gets a ground out from Alvarez, a ground out from McNeil, and a ground out from Tyrone Taylor. But at this point right now, I mean, it would have been nice to get insurance runs, but all Mets fans are thinking is, all right, let's get to the bottom of the ninth. Let's save this. Let's win this game. Let's make it 8 in a row, and let's freaking celebrate. But you know what? Some things are not meant to be. So Ryan Stanek would enter the game, and some folks are probably thinking, oh, no, Edwin Diaz is hurt. But Mendoza assured us that Edwin Diaz is fine. He's fine. It's just that they're trying to limit his innings. So, then you're probably thinking, or, you would think, is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? You have a one-run, very emotional game, and you're putting it in the hands of Ryan Stanek. Now, Ryan Stanek has done fairly well, but we all know he's not Edwin Diaz. So right then and there, in the back of my head, I have that saying, okay, a very emotional win. This is a very big win. I would have tried to go to Edwin Diaz. All right. So nonetheless, Ryan Stanek replaces Reed Garrett. He's facing Dylan Cruz, and Dylan Cruz is swinging for the fences. Dylan Cruz is the guy who made that diving play in right field in the eighth, and he's the guy who let Mark Vientos get a triple, essentially. So Dylan Cruz is trying for redemption, and he ends up hitting a very deep fly ball to right field. He gets a really good piece of the baseball. So the thing about this ball, and the reason why I actually give Soto, I give Soto this play about a 5 out of 10, because this ball had a lot of air time under it. Number one. Number two, Soto has played in this ballpark for years. For about 3 years, so he knows the ballpark very well. Number two, and like I said, he had time to get under it. He gets to the warning track, and he begins to kind of like tiptoe, and just jumps, whereas he could have ran back about a few more feet to get under the ball, which he had time to do. And I looked, was he running full speed to the ball? No, he ended up easing up the last 2 seconds, last 2.5 seconds, which is why the ball ended up tipping the end of the glove. It's a play that, Juan Soto, he's not the best of the best defenders, but that's more of a basic play. That's more of a play where I expect my right fielder to make. It wasn't a hard level play. He doesn't have to dive. He doesn't have to scale the wall. It's not a line drive hit right at you. It's not a ball where you have to make a quick decision. It's a ball where you have ample time because of the hang time to make the play. And as the broadcast said, it looked like he had a beat on it. All right, so the play's not made, and you have Dylan Cruz at third base. So at this point, it's still 4-3. Jose Tena comes up. He singles on a ground ball to center field. That made it 4-4, and Dylan Cruz was easily able to scamper home. So, you still have a chance to have it go into extra innings, of course. So it is man on first, 0 outs. Jacob Young comes up. He grounds out into a force. They get the play at second base. Tina is out at second. Jacob Young is at first, and you have 1 out. The Mets then go to their pen. They put in A.J. Minter, replaces Ryan Stanek. So A.J. Minter is facing C.J. Abrams, and he gets Abrams to force out. Mark Vientos made a very nice play, very risky play as well. He gets the ball. He gets the force out at second. So now you have the situation where it is, it's 2 outs. You have 2 outs right now. You have 2 outs. C.J. Abrams grounds it to force out, third baseman, and you have a situation where the Mets could really get out. All right, so this is probably one of the more frustrating plays. So you have James Wood up on the plate, and he ends up hitting a ground ball towards the middle of the diamond. Jeff McNeil looks like he could have dived or smothered the ball very easily, but he ends up reaching out. He tips the ball, ends up slowing down the ball. So Tyrone Taylor has to run, has to charge the ball, and now the runner, C.J. Abrams, is able to run he has a lot more time to run and score. So Tyrone Taylor throws the ball home, and the Mets ended up challenging the play, but CJ Abrams clearly scored, and this was a very dramatic win for the Nationals as well. They beat the best team in baseball. It's 5-4, and as like the lights are flickering, and as the Nationals are celebrating, I'm like, you know what? The Mets, we have to remember that we have a target on our back right now. Every team is going to take this as their World Series, their championship, especially a team like the Nationals, a young and up and coming team. So, that's why, when we have an opportunity to win, Edwin Diaz, right then and there, you take that opportunity to have that win right now. Who knows? I mean, the Mets may go, start hitting, romping, getting blown out. Who the hell knows when Edwin Diaz is going to have his next opportunity? We already know Edwin Diaz had a day off. He already hasn't pitched in 2 days. So if he was clearly ready to go, I mean, that's something that we're going to harp on. But also another thing to harp on, Jeff McNeil. I mean, if Acuna's there, I mean, Acuna is a guy with speed. Acuna is a guy that most of us are going to believe that knocks that down. Most of us believe he's going to knock that down. Also, too, with these at bats, I mean, even though we had a hit from McNeil, I'm not liking the approach. I mean, the lineup really, in my opinion, was not flowing. It wasn't flowing. It just gave me flashbacks of last August. It certainly did, and I didn't really like it. I know Soto had 2 hits. Nimmo ended up getting a little inspired. Vientos had 2 hits. One of them was a blooper, and then you had Alvarez and McNeil. I mean, we only had 8 hits on the day. That's not a little. It's not a lot. I mean, the Nationals had 13. It just didn't feel right. I mean, this game, maybe it's because of the call. I'm just like very disappointed. I'm very disappointed, and I don't want to just keep harping on the call. The players have to go out there and execute. But at the end of the day, like if it's that egregious, you know, it just shows you I couldn't be a major league player because I would think about the call the whole game. So for the Mets to end up having that type of comeback, it really just kind of shows them how mentally strong this team is. And then, at the end of the day, you can't win every game. The Mets were on a 7-game winning streak. Would have been nice to get an 8-game winning streak, but at least they showed, as Carlos Mendoza did say in the postgame, they showed a lot of positives in this defeat. So we have to look at those positives, and then take that and continue to grow. It's a very long season. If we look at those positives, Juan Soto, and maybe he's breaking out of the slump, getting those 2 hits. Vientos, after having a very bad game, 3 strikeouts last game, has 2 hits, 3 RBIs, very clutch base hit. Nimmo, he's been in a very big slump. He had another 2 hits. And then you have Alvarez coming back. Tyrone Taylor making a couple nice defensive plays. So, that's good on the offensive side, even though I don't think the lineup flowed that well today. But those are individual good accomplishments. And then on the pitching, Senga was able to only give up 2 runs. He pitched 6 strong innings. Brazoban, it could have been worse with him. He limited the damage. Reed Garrett, he had a clean inning. I mean, like, Reed Garrett was the only guy that pitched a clean inning without a run. I mean, it's hard to say. So many of our pitchers have allowed, 0 runs, but Senga allowed 2 runs, Brazoban 1 run, Stanek 2 runs. Minter only pitched a third of an inning. So, I mean, Garrett was the only guy that pitched at least 1 inning and allowed no runs. So you're going to have games like this. You're going to have games like this, and you can't win them all. But at the end of the day, what could you take from this game and go forward to make yourself better, stronger? I think at the end of the day, this is something that's going to make the Mets mentally stronger. This is something that's going to make them again realize that, you know what, no matter who you're facing, you don't have to be facing the Dodgers, the Padres, the Braves to get like the other team's best performance. Those Nationals, they wanted to beat us, and they wanted to beat us badly. They wanted to beat us badly, and they played their hearts out. Give them credit. Irvin pitched a great game. He pitched a great game. I still think that the Mets have to, that's the lineup, the approach has to get a lot better. Maybe having two different batters in the game, maybe that made things a little awkward in the first game back. I expect that flow to get a little better. But the Mets, as long as they grow, as long as they take the positives from this, as Carlos Mendoza said, then it will have positive impact in the future. And again, it's a long season. You can't win them all. I would have loved to win this game. I'm sure many of us would have loved to win this game. Very frustrating. And again, I'm not making it, I know some folks, if you're not a Mets fan, you're like, oh, this guy's making excuses end over end. I'm telling you, if that was your team, put yourself in this situation. It was the wrong call, And it was the egregious wrong call. And then if you make the wrong call, you got to go through the steps to do the right thing. And I think, you could make a mistake, but I think the fact that he didn't go to any lengths to make the right call, that's what bothered me more. That's the thing that was egregious. Didn't huddle up, didn't try to find the right call, just took the Carlos Mendoza arguing, and you can hear from the booth, they're saying, in the booth, they were saying how, Marquez knows he got it wrong. He's just letting Mendoza talk, and he's letting Mendoza get his anger out. I'm like, so he knows he got it wrong, and he's not huddling up, but he's not trying to make a call. It's not like any time has passed. It's not like players resumed, and he's realized it a couple plays later. He still has an opportunity to make it right. I was just getting so frustrated. I just didn't understand why he wasn't huddling up, or why there was no recourse. There was absolutely no recourse. This is obviously something Major League Baseball has to look at, because if you're going to have instant replay and that is not a reviewable call, and then you have the umps not willing to huddle up because of pride or ego, you got a big problem. And then, I didn't even want to touch on this. And then you're going to have a faction of MLB fans, have these conspiracies that, gambling this, gambling that, maybe somebody's got money on the game. Like, I don't know anything about that. But, if it's that egregious and nobody's trying to make the right call, they're just turning their back saying, all right, whatever, that was my call. Then you're going to have those rumblings when it is that bad. The Mets, Major League Baseball owes the New York Mets an apology. That's number one. The NBA, when they make a mistake in the last 2 minutes and they admit it and they issue the team an apology, they owe the New York Mets an apology. And Marquez, Major League Baseball, when you make a mistake of this magnitude, there has to be a consequence. There has to be a consequence. Whether the guy doesn't see any playoff games, or whether you put him on, whatever you do, maybe you don't make him the crew chief. I don't know how it works with the MLB umps, but there's got to be consequences when it is that bad and you don't try to make it right. That's the key. Everybody can make mistakes, but if you don't have any effort to correct it, that makes the mistake 10 times worse. 10 times worse. And then also, too, there were a couple calls, too, check swing calls where they went down to first base, and it ironically went against the Mets, and they made note of that in the booth too. So it was very frustrating. But you give the Mets credit for fighting back, for having that fight, and you give this umpire zero credit for having any type of respect for his job, respect for being a major league umpire. You are tasked, you are privileged with having that job. It's a privilege to be a major league umpire. Do you know how many umpires in the minor leagues? Do you know how many college umpires? Do you know how many umpires across the United States, across the world, with desire to have that position? And then you take it for granted, and you turn your head and you walk away, and you don't even try to do your job? Pathetic. All right, folks, let me know what you think. I know I did a lot of complaining this video, but maybe next video is not going to be as much complaining. I expect the Mets to still do very well this series. We're playing the Nationals 4 games. 3 out of 4 games is very – I could see that happening. The Mets, after they lost – I think they lost 2 games last time, and then they went on another streak. So let's start our new streak. That's it. All right, folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you didn't get a chance, like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. I love all the comments from the last couple of videos. Thank you so much. Great stuff coming. And I will speak to you very, very soon. Have a great night, folks.